Welcome back. As you know, I'm Eli, the computer guy, here for the Daily Blob, where I shake my brain nipples every day so I can get some of that sweet, sweet YouTube money so I can provide you folks free hands-on technology education. My pride and joy is something called Silicon Dojo, silicondojo.com. Free to the end user hands-on technology education that empowers you to do whatever the hell it is you want to do. Our first class is going to be in Durham, North Carolina in a couple of days. That is all full, but we are going to be having more classes coming soon. So do make sure to join silicondojo.com if you're interested in real technology classes, the important things in this world. And with that, let me talk about the stupid stuff. Let me talk about the stupid crap so I can get that good YouTube money. So I think we're starting to see the problem, one of the problems with artificial intelligence, where basically artificial intelligence is being deployed before it has been fully cooked. One of the interesting things I see in the technology world as far as artificial intelligence is concerned is that it seems that more and more technology professionals are becoming ever more disillusioned by the day about the prospects of artificial intelligence, right? So, from when ChatGPT came out and everybody started using it a couple of years ago to now, one of the curious things that I've noticed is more and more AI professionals are starting to look askance at artificial intelligence and think, it's really good at doing party tricks. Actually getting it to do work to effectively solve problems is a bit of a bigger issue. The problem is, though, right, a lot of these companies out there, they buy the story of artificial intelligence, not the reality of artificial intelligence, and so they are trying to deploy it at warp speed, right? If they don't deploy artificial intelligence at warp speed, their competitors will, and then they will fail. But they're not really looking at the outcomes. They're not looking at the outcomes, right? And that's one of the things to be thinking about, right, as a technology professional. What are you being judged by? What are you being graded by? What is your bonus coming from? Is your bonus coming from your systems appropriately solving the customer's problems in an efficient and effective manner? Or is your bonus coming from deploying systems? Those are two entirely different things. What we're seeing in the AI world is the money is going to people who deploy, and they're not really worried about whether those deployments are actually doing what the hell things need to happen. So this is kind of interesting with Deloitte. So Deloitte has been pushing this whole AI thing for a while, and Deloitte now, coming from The Guardian, to pay money back to Albany's government after using AI in $440,000 report. So humans are expensive, employees are expensive. So if Deloitte is going to earn $440,000 in revenue, the way to increase the profit is to decrease how much they spend on employees. So hey, let's have AI do a lot of the functions of creating this report, right? The government is paying for the solution. They're paying for the report, right? So they shouldn't care how that report gets created. Unless AI is a complete and utter disaster. Partial refund to be issued after several errors were found in a report into a department's compliance framework. Deloitte will provide a partial refund to the federal government over a $440,000 report that contained several errors after admitting it used generative AI to help produce it. And this is one of the problems with artificial intelligence. The whole question of is who audits the output. Right? AI, LLMs on their own is not a bad thing, but the output has to be audited. Do you have people with the appropriate skill set to audit the work that AI puts out, right? I think about this when I do classes, right? So Silicon Dojo, I've been doing these in-person classes for a number of years now, right? I started doing the in-person classes like 4 or 5 years ago here in Asheville, North Carolina. And one of the interesting things is, right, it's all hands-on work, right? So when you're learning Python, when I'm teaching you Python, you actually code Python. When I teach you AI, you're coding AI projects. When I'm teaching you, a SQL or whatever, you're actually coding SQL statements. The curious thing is, when students have problems, is they find new and inventive ways to fuck shit up. Like, I know how I fuck my shit up, right? So when I'm sitting there and I'm writing my code and I go to run the code and I get an error back, I go, oh, I know what I did because I fat finger things in the same way. Or I know where I was a little bit confused and I was a little bit unsure, but, I just figured, fuck it, I'll spitball it, right? So I know where my problems are. One of the interesting things is when you have students and they're doing the projects and they fuck up, finding out where they screwed things up in the code is an entirely different story. Auditing students' code is a complete pain in the ass because they find new and inventive ways. And again, like just errors that you don't do, right? There's just natural things that you do when you create systems, you're coding or whatever. You have built-in errors. You have errors, right? Just by how you learn to code, right? There's just these errors that you run into. But the thing is, again, if you've got 20 people in a classroom, they have 20 different lived experiences, so they are going to have their own default errors. And then that's 20 people for this class, an entirely different 20 people for the next class, an entirely different 20 people for the next class. And so one of the things is when you're teaching people to hands-on do technology, one of the exceedingly difficult deals is auditing complete noobs code to try to figure out where the fuck they fuck things up. And why I bring that up is it is an interesting question with artificial intelligence, right? If you're going to have these AI systems basically creating content, whether it's code, whether it's reports, whatever else, do you have employees with the appropriate skill set to understand how LLMs fuck things up? Right? Because again, like one of the reasons it takes a while to catch flaws in student code is I look for the errors that I would do, right? I scan through and I look for the errors that I would do, and many times I don't see it. It's like, that should work, right? I scan, I don't see what I consider an error, so I say, it should work. Right, so think about this, right? If you have an AI auditor and they have lived experiences, a whole nine things, they may scan through. They are looking for the problems that they've seen in the past. They don't see any of those problems. Output is good. No, there are many errors in that output. They're just not the types of errors you've seen before. So if you're using these AI systems to generate content, one, do you actually have people auditing what the output is? And then two, do they have the experience to appropriately audit AI output? Right? When they see cases being referenced, do they verify those cases actually exist, legal cases? When they see certain things, do they pick up on it, or do they look through and go, yep, there's commas, there's periods, it's all good? And I think that's a big issue that we're going to be seeing with a lot of these companies, is that they're not putting in that full workflow. The idea is we'll just have AI do it. Like, so they fire the employee for the tasks that the AI does, but they don't hire or they don't retask employees for the new problems that AI creates. The Department of Employment and Workplace Relations confirmed Deloitte would repay the final installment under its contract, which will be made public after the transaction is finalized. It comes as one labor senator accused the consultancy firm of having, quote, a human intelligence problem. Deloitte was commissioned by the department to review the targeted compliance framework and its IT systems used to automate penalties in the welfare system if mutual obligations weren't met by job seekers in December of 2024. And so think about this too, like for a company like Deloitte, right? Why do you hire Deloitte? For the quality, whatever, right? Governments are hiring these consultancy firms. These consultancy firms are dumping in artificial intelligence before it's been fully cooked. But the output from these types of reports affects things like people that get benefits from the welfare system, right? How many people is Deloitte willing to screw over? How many poor and desperate people is Deloitte willing to screw over simply because they decided to deploy artificial intelligence within their systems before they had fully made sure that the systems worked appropriately? And this is a really big concern, again, as they start deploying AI. When you think about AI, right, so much of the time you talk about AI, high schoolers writing the reports or college professors using it to create curriculum or whatever else. Who the hell cares? Who the hell cares? That's all pantomime anyway. But a lot of the stuff that AI is being deployed for is things like criminal justice reform, for welfare reform, for a lot of those types of things, right? If you have artificial intelligence hallucinating solutions for things like criminal justice reform, the results can be horrifying. The subsequent report found widespread issues, including a lack of traceability between the rules of the framework and the legislation behind it, as well as system defects. It said an IT system was, quote, driven by punitive punitive assumptions of participant non-compliance. It was first published on the 4th of July. It was re-uploaded to the DEWR website on Friday after the Australian Financial Review in August reported that multiple errors have been found, including non-existent references and citations. The other thing to be thinking about this too, again, we talk about the auditing process. The auditing process now needs to be on both sides. Not only does Deloitte and that type of company need to audit the output coming from the artificial intelligence, but the customer who is receiving the content from that consultancy, do they have the ability to audit what is coming in? University of Sydney academic Dr. Christopher Rudge, who first highlighted errors, said the report contained, quote, hallucinations where AI models may fill in gaps, misinterpret data, or try to guess answers. Quote, instead of just substituting one hallucinated fake reference for a new real reference, they've substituted the fake hallucinated references, and in the new version, there are like 5, 6, or 7, or 8 in their place. So basically, they changed the hallucinated reference for 6 more hallucinated references. So what that suggests is that the original claim made in the body of the report wasn't based on any one particular evidentiary source. The updated review noted, quote, a small number of corrections and references and footnotes, but the department has said that there have been no changes to the review's recommendations. Quote, Deloitte conducted the independent assurance review and has confirmed some footnotes and references were incorrect, a spokesperson said. Quote, the substance of the independent review is retained and there are no changes to the recommendations. And so this is a curious thing too, is so Deloitte basically puts out this crap that was created by artificial intelligence. They're now saying some things around the edges were hallucinated by the artificial intelligence, but the core of the report is good. Does that mean the core of the report is good? Or they're worried about the legal implications if the core of the report isn't good, or they're worried about the PR backlash if the core of the report isn't good. Which one of those things is actually true? In the updated version of the report, Deloitte added references to the use of generative AI in its appendix. It states that a part of the report, quote, included the use of a generative AI large language model based tool chain licensed by DEWR and hosted on DEWR's Azure tenancy. Deloitte did not state that the artificial intelligence was the reason behind the errors in its original report. It also stood by the original findings of the review. Quote, the updates made in no way impact or affect the substantive content, findings, and recommendations in the report. A spokesperson for Deloitte said, quote, the matter has been resolved directly with the client. So I think this is kind of an interesting thing to be thinking about, especially with these consultancy firms. And if your company or if your organization is buying services from a consultancy firm, how much is simply getting spit out by artificial intelligence? And then what does that actually mean? Can you trust what you're being provided? I think the bigger issue here too, I think with a lot of these organizations is basically the idea of how do you audit the AI output. It's also one of the concerns when we start talking about things like shadow IT, right? So shadow IT is where you may not allow, shadow AI is where you may not allow artificial intelligence within your organization, but people decide to swipe the credit card and just use artificial intelligence on their own, right? If it costs $20 a month, I will pay $20 of my own money to be able to get out of 20 hours of work per month, right? That makes sense to me. Well, one of the issues that comes up is what happens if your employees are using artificial intelligence and you don't even realize they're using artificial intelligence, so you don't even think about auditing what the AI puts out there. I think this is one of the interesting things when we start talking about artificial intelligence and we start talking about like the future for technology professionals. One of the things I've noticed with technology professionals right now is that they're very sad. They're very depressed. Right? I spent years and years and years, decades now in this field. I've seen all kinds of maladjusted behaviors out of technology professionals. One of the curious things that I see right now is just how depressed so many technology professionals are. Like there's this idea that with the rise of the AI stack, right, there's no reason to be in the tech industry anymore. And the important thing that I try to push to you folks is that it's just another stack. It is just another stack. right? It has good points, it has bad points, but it needs people to build systems. It needs people to maintain. It needs people to deploy. It needs people just like all other systems do. And so like one of the things to be considering, right, for your organization and thinking about this with how to secure your job or how to move up in your organization is thinking about things like, again, like with the workflow of using artificial intelligence. Going to your boss, going to your organization leader and bringing up the idea of auditing the output of AI. What institutional resources does your organization have for auditing? Maybe up until now, auditing hasn't been a big issue, right? If high skill employees have been creating the work, then basically there's just a natural auditing process that happens when they're creating the work. So maybe you didn't have an auditing department. Well, now if you start having AI do more and more stuff, then it becomes more important to be able to audit and verify the work that's being created. Maybe in your company, the next breakthrough department that needs to be created is an AI auditing and compliance division. You go to your organization leaders and say, I would like to spearhead this, right? I think about this. I have a buddy of mine who exited an AI company recently. So he created an AI company, exited, apparently did pretty well with it. But anyways, one of the big things was workflows, right? They were looking at artificial intelligence. They're trying to figure out how to make money off of artificial intelligence. And one of the things they found for institutions is just there weren't workflows. Right, so you think about it with like digital records, like taking physical records and turning them into digital records. Like there's a workflow for that. This is how you get the physical record. This is how you scan it into the system. This is how you add metadata. This is how you do all this stuff, right? There's that whole process. One of the interesting things he found was for the artificial intelligence systems that there wasn't a replicatable process that different organizations could simply pick up, become trained on, and go forward with as far as artificial intelligence is concerned. And so literally what his company did is his company created a replicatable process with a certification program, an education program, and the whole 9 yards, packaged that up, did that for a number of years, and then, got bought out by some other company for a decent amount of money, because one of the big values in artificial intelligence is just what the fuck does the workflow actually look like, right? And that's one of the important things with why industry expertise is important, why talking with people is important, with understanding what problems need to be solved is important. Because what we might find out is the multi-million-dollar idea isn't the next LLM or isn't the next, RAG 3.0 or whatever else. The next multi-million-dollar, multi-billion-dollar solution might actually be something like workflows and that type of thing. So anyways, there you go. There are some thoughts. What do you think about this? What do you think about Deloitte using AI to create crap for the government and get paid for it? What do you think about their auditing system? For a company like Deloitte, their auditing system seems to be just crap. What do you think about that? Put your thoughts down below. If you like these videos, give us a thumbs up. If you hate these videos, give us a thumbs down. Call me amazing, call me a dumbass. Just make sure to be a real lutnick and do it down there in the comment section. Do remember Silicon Dojo. SiliconDojo.com is my pride and joy. We're having our first class coming up in a couple of days on AI and LLMs and Olama and that kind of stuff. That is all full up, but we're going to be having more classes in Durham, North Carolina coming up pretty soon. So if you're interested in that, make sure to go become a member of SiliconDojo.com. And with that, see y'all later.